Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webcast, Residential Energy Efficiency Programs. My name is Ian Maddock. I am a co-founder and Chief Revenue Officer with MyHeat Imagery, a Canadian-based efficiency technology company. I'll actually post our website in the chat there for you to take a look at your leisure, and I'll be the moderator for today's session. We'll start this webcast with a few housekeeping announcements and then quickly move on to our presenters, followed by Q&A if time allows. First and foremost, thank you to all of our sponsors and the ally members for their support of the Energy Efficiency as a Resource Conference and the ACEEE. Please use the chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to ask questions of the presenters. As moderator, I'll share your questions with the speakers once all the presentations have been made. If we don't get to your questions, please join us for a 20-minute of chat and discussions on the Zoom platform immediately following the session. The Zoom link will be posted in the chat later during the session. Please refrain from using the chat for any dialogue other than asking questions of the panel members. Be sure to check out all the options on the left-hand side of the app where you can connect with other attendees, engage in our game to possibly win a free registration to the 2023 Philadelphia EER Conference. Visit the resources section to download a PDF of the program and the Zoom links for all of the concurrent chats and discussions. Lastly, we ask everyone to complete the conference evaluation found in the resources. Anyone who completes the evaluation and includes their name and a testimonial will receive a discount to attend the next EER conference in 2023. All presentations will be available for on-demand viewing within a few days of this engagement hub. Presenters' PowerPoints can be found on their page in the program participation section. And now I'd like to introduce you to our distinguished panel of speakers. They are Holly Carr, Director of Energy Solar Decathlon with the U.S. Department of Energy, George Z, who is the VP of Technology at Sense, and Rebecca Olson, Director of Residential Programs at the Center for Energy Efficiency and Environment in Minneapolis. With that, we'll start with our first speaker, who is Holly Carr. Holly is the Director of the U.S. Department of Energy Solar Decathlon, a collegiate competition comprising 10 contests that challenges students' teams to design and build highly efficient and innovative net zero energy buildings. Holly's been involved in many DOE programs over the years, including the Better Buildings Alliance and Green Lease Leaders. She is a LEED accredited professional, a certified energy manager, and an EDGE expert. Holly will discuss how utilities can partner with the DOE to promote cost-effective home attic upgrades. With that, Holly, we'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Ian. I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen here. We'll hope for the best. And we'll put it in presentation mode so everybody can see a little better. Okay, here we go. I want to start off by acknowledging my colleague, Terrence Mosley. Terrence was a fellow here in the Building Technologies Office at DOE up until just a few months ago. And he is the one who did the majority of the legwork on this program and certainly on this presentation. But his fellowship ended and he's moved on to other work in Department of Energy. And so I'm presenting on his behalf and just want to acknowledge all of his hard work in this area. So first off, why do we care about attics? Why do we care about residential attic upgrades here at DOE? As you probably know, we have millions and millions and millions of residential homes in the U.S., and the large majority, the vast majority of them are under insulated. The residential sector accounts for over 20% of our energy use and billions of dollars of energy bills. And this is a pretty straightforward, commonly recommended measure for improving energy performance in homes that we see over and over again in energy audits. And also this is applicable across the country. Every single climate zone, homes can benefit from attic insulation and attic upgrade. So we are particularly recommending a comprehensive attic upgrade at DOE, and that's the resource and the program that I'm going to be talking about with you today. And so, what makes it comprehensive? First off, it includes air sealing, as well as complete air barriers in the attic. Also includes sealing of ducts, ensuring that you have attic insulation, and adjusting those fan ducts. And finally, the insulation itself. So whereas you might just get some insulation put in there, this comprehensive attic upgrade is really a robust methodology and set of instructions and quality control checklist for making sure you've got the whole package. So the Comprehensive Attic Package, or CAP initiative here at DOE, is a voluntary partnership with DOE's Home Improvement Expert Program. It includes free resources and framework that utilities, governments, contractors, you name it, can use to ensure that folks are not just getting an attic insulation job, they're getting a comprehensive attic upgrade program. We think that these CAP resources really lay out very specifically what those best practices are, delineate those off-the-shelf materials that folks can use. These are all materials that can be purchased at Lowe's or Home Depot, and ensures also that you've got that QA and QC right in the job itself. And we hope that the DOE endorsement of the program is beneficial to folks as well. So there are two checklists available related to the Comprehensive Attic Upgrade Program. One is for vented attics, and one is moving from vented to unvented attics. Both of these checklists, as well as the additional checklist that I'll talk about in a little while, have three sections. There's preparation for the job, what to actually do during the job, and then that commissioning phase, making sure that everything functions correctly. We see these primary uses for CAP. We see that the CAP checklist can be very beneficial to program implementers and utilities as a complementary resource to incentive programs that might be in place right now, to make sure that you're communicating best practices to installers and that you're capturing the greatest amount of savings possible. Certainly, this can be used as standalone guidance in existing programs that utilities and implementers might already have, a tool for quality assurance. And we do see folks using the checklist simply as training for folks, for installers and contractors who are learning how to do this method. We have a couple of pilots underway, one with one of the conference sponsors, DTE Energy. In Michigan, they'll be identifying 70 homes in Michigan to receive these upgrades as a pilot. They'll be training contractors with the checklists, and then having a HERS rater perform pre and post blower door tests to make sure that to see what the differences are between the pre and post installation, and then documenting those. So that's going to be taking place through next fall. And then obviously we'll have results from those and be able to share those out with folks. Our second pilot underway right now is with the Kentucky Habitat for Humanity. This organization has a grant both to complete upgrades in a couple of homes, as well as to hopefully include solar on those homes once the upgrades have happened, the attic upgrades have happened. So here's information on where to go to actually get these resources. The website is here at the top. This is our home improvement expert website that is DOE funded, but on the Pacific Northwest National Labs website. You can access all of the checklists from this website, and you can also log on and become a partner, which gives you access to co-brandable checklists. So not only do we have the comprehensive attic package, vented and unvented checklists, we also have 21 additional checklists for all kinds of common upgrades and installations that are happening in homes. All of these checklists are also available in Spanish. And as a partner, all of these checklists are co-brandable. So if you're a utility or a program implementer or a contractor, you can put your brand or your program logo right on these documents and get them out to folks. Okay, so that's my little spiel for our home improvement expert program, and specifically for attic upgrades and comprehensive attic upgrades. Feel free to reach out to me with questions after this presentation, and I think we'll also be on Zoom, so happy to talk to folks either way. I will stop sharing now and turn it back over to you, Ian.
Really interesting project that you have going there with CAP, and you're absolutely right. You know, there's more to improving an attic and the efficiency of an attic than just adding insulation into the attic. So really fascinating to see, and really curious to see how the results come from your project with DTE. With that, we'll go to our next speaker, which is George Zee. George is the VP of Technology at Sense, where he leads a team of data scientists and engineers who apply advanced machine learning to home energy tracking and analysis. Prior to joining Sense, George led machine learning operations for Amazon Alexa. He was also a co-founder of Parametros Trading and director of research at Nuance Communications Mobility Division. George holds a PhD in electrical engineering from Northern University. George will take a look at using home energy monitoring technology to assess residential AC efficiency. George?
Thank you, Ian, and I'm very glad to be here at ACEEE making this presentation. Let me try to share my screen. There you go. Okay, so my full name is George Zavaliagos. I go by George Zee so that I don't bore everyone with my very long last name. So let me first give you a very quick why we did what we did and what we accomplished. So my company, Sense, our mission is to reduce global carbon emissions by making homes smarter and more efficient. We believe that awareness and data is the key to this. Most people today know about their energy consumption by the one piece of paper they get from their utility at the end of the month. And this is so much 20th century. In the 21st century, we expect everything we want is on our phone. So that's what the Sense Energy Monitor does. It's a real-time view to your energy consumption. And this is kind of like the background for the company. But as we've been deploying to more and more homes in the last few years, and many of our customers have enabled integrations with smart thermostats, we have realized that we have a goldmine of data, thousands of homes with both smart thermostat and the energy monitor, where we can actually analyze and find what is true about the energy consumption. And our challenge is to generate value, right? Make our home smarter and help our customers save money and save energy. And what we found out is that, even among our colleagues that are working in the energy, we'd ask, is my AC efficient? And the answer we would get is, I spend $50 a month, $70 a month, $100 a month. That's about right. Is it okay? I don't know. So we set out to answer this based on data. And where we're going to is today the home energy monitor is something that you go and buy and retrofit your home, but the next generation meters will have real-time energy monitor built in, and that creates new opportunities for utilities and for tools in energy efficiency. Oops. So let me give you a background on Sense. As you can see on the first image here, Sense is the orange box. It's a retrofit hardware that you buy and you install in your electrical panel. And what you get with it is the middle screen, you get a real-time view of your energy. Every half a second, you see an update of what's happening in your house, annotated by what devices are generating it. And on the right view, you see a disaggregated view of your energy consumption with individual devices. When they turn on, when they turn off, the bubble bigger, depending on their energy consumption and a timeline. How do we do that? We use machine learning to discover the signatures. And as Sense gets installed in more and more houses, this network effect, which is typical of machine learning, our models get better and our accuracy get better. The kind of like amazing thing with our app is that we all know that energy is boring and people don't care about energy. But what we find that when you give this real-time view to our customers, 50% of them open the app every week, and on the average, our users open the Sense app 9 times a month to see what's happening in their house, which is an amazing engagement. So we said that our mission is to reduce global carbon emissions, and by being a retrofit hardware, we cannot accomplish this. Our vision is not to sell more hardware boxes. Our vision is to become part of the infrastructure available to everyone. And we're doing that with 2 strategic partnerships. First with Ladison Gear, and Sense is going to be standard software running as part of the next generation meter. And National Grid announced the first deployment in New York starting in 2023 in 1.7 million homes, and hopefully more utilities and more customers in the next few years. So that's one path to scale. And the second path, we have a strategic partnership with Schneider Electric, which is a company that makes the Square D panels here in the US. And we're working to integrate Sense to be part of the next generation electric panel. So that was the background. How do we go about targeting inefficient ACs? Okay. So the science part is we started with 1,263 homes that have both the Sense Energy Monitor and a smart thermostat integration, which gave us ground truth at the second level, both on the runtime, which we can get from the thermostat as a verification, and from the energy consumption from the Sense Energy Monitor. So we know temperature, we know runtime, we know consumption, so we can figure out what causes some houses to be inefficient and some houses to be efficient. Well, the first thing you realize when you do this analysis is that weather matters, and this is outside of the control of the homeowner. But in order to make the comparison full, we needed to define weather-based cohorts. So every dot in this map on the right is a Sense customer, and every color is a different cohort. And had a little bit fun with looking at how this turned out in New York, New England. So you could see a cohort in orange along the Hudson River Valley. Manhattan has 2 cohorts, one towards New Jersey, another kind of like towards the Atlantic Ocean. You see central Massachusetts, you see western Massachusetts, you see coastal Massachusetts, and you see these little blue dots, kind of like wherever you have mountainous cold areas in the Berkshires or in New Hampshire and Maine. Gives you an idea for how not only geography and location, but weather affects to whom you are similar with. And by looking at electricity consumption, we can tell that, obviously set point, but how large your AC size is and how much large your house is obviously affects consumption. So we put that all together and we've designed a custom cohort for each of our customers. Because besides doing the science and figuring that something an AC may be inefficient, what's important is how you deliver this message to the customer and how you encourage them to take action. So our view is that everything starts with a real-time device detection and monitoring, which creates a trust relation with the customer. They can see when we tell them when the AC is running or not. They can tell if we're right or wrong, and if we're right, then they start trusting our messages. So we've created a new area in the app called Sense Labs, where we are adding intelligence-based features. And you'll see here we have a component that detects faulty motors, a component that looks at power quality and voltage anomalies, floating neutral. But we also have a component that looks at their AC energy in comparison with their cohort. And in that particular house, you see this red exclamation point. And what the customer would see is that they are spending more energy. Customized, this is their 250 most similar homes, both in terms of geography, weather, and house size. And they can see where they are in that particular house, spending about 35 kilowatts per day to cool their house, and where the 20% more efficient line would be, which for that area would be about 10 kilowatt hours a day. And then a customized message saying that if you can become efficient, then you could save $717 a year by becoming efficient. Okay. So this is the one user experience. And then we go ahead and look at 15,000 users that we piloted this message with. And we separated our users in 3 cohorts: the 20% least efficient, the 20% more efficient, and the rest, the average houses. And the first thing we see is that the 1/5, the 20% least efficient houses are responsible about half, 44% to be exact, of total air conditioning consumption. And the same homes are responsible for 31% of total consumption. So if we could find a way to make these least efficient homes as efficient as the 20% more efficient, we could save 8% of residential consumption. And one can dream and put these numbers into context. So if you improve one inefficient home, we found that you could save about 5,000 kilowatt hours per year, or about $880, which corresponds to 2.6 tons of CO2. But you can imagine what these numbers mean for a mid-sized utility with 1 million customers. We're talking about 500,000 tons of CO2 and 1 billion kilowatt hours. And if you can project to all of the US, we're talking about billions of kilowatt hours and billions of dollars and 52 millions of carbon. Okay, not an easy task, but this is what we can accomplish. Give you another perspective about what we can do by having view to disaggregated devices. So in California, we can identify the percentage of consumption that is due to shiftable devices, or like pools, water heaters, HVAC, and we can identify that cooling represents 88% of the shiftable loads and 46% of peak consumption. So if you could manage to make the 20% least efficiencies as efficient as the 20% more efficient, then you can potentially generate 13% of peak reduction or load flexibility. And to wrap up, our thesis is that in order to achieve results, you need to start with building trust. You need to start by giving a real-time experience to customers so that the numbers about energy make sense to them. And doing that one customer at a time, you can accomplish results. And by getting built into the infrastructure, we can bring networks and effects and scaling and new insights. We can bring personalized messages with specific, credible information about savings. And what we're working to is try to connect our savings message with advanced monitoring capabilities that have to do with HVAC health. It's one thing to tell you that you have an inefficiency and that you have to fix it. Where we want to be is we want to tell people, hey, you have an old AC. We see signs that it needs maintenance. Let us educate you. We need to move from an emergency repair to a considered purchase so that we can achieve these savings. And thank you very much. And I'll answer any questions.
Fascinating technology that you're working on at Sense, and certainly has the impact or the potential impact to really get homeowners on the behavioral side of things to really start looking at their consumption and how it's broken out by different products within their home. So I'm curious to see how the audience views that and has some questions with regards to your technology. With that, I'd like to remind the audience that's listening that please put your questions in the chat box. I'll be monitoring them, and once we're done with the presentations, we'll hopefully have some time at the end of this session for the Q&A. If it happens to spill over into that Zoom link after, we'll be doing that as well. And that Zoom link will be provided in the chat so that you'll be able to access that after if we do indeed need to move to that. With that, we'll go to our last presenter, which now we'll hear from Rebecca Olson. Rebecca is the Director of Residential Programs and oversees all aspects of the residential energy programs at the Center for Energy and Environment in Minneapolis, including energy audit and direct install programs, quality assurance activities, multifamily programs and services, and new construction and energy consulting. She has had various roles in the residential energy efficiency, including work as an energy auditor, low-income weatherization program director, and building science educator. Rebecca has a BA in architecture from the University of Minnesota. Rebecca will explore co-funding energy efficiency to preserve affordable rental housing in Minneapolis. With that, Rebecca, we'll turn it over to you.
I assume everybody can hear me. And very excited to be here today to talk about this program that I've had the privilege of working on for the last few years. The reason that I'm excited about this is it's an innovative way, I think, for local governments and utilities to work together. And so I am going to do my best to get you a good amount of information in 15 minutes. So let me get started. This is just a little bit about my organization, Center for Energy and Environment. Here's our mission and our values. This is a program that was developed and funded by the city of Minneapolis. And then CE has been contracted to implement this program and really both work with the customer and the property owners to walk through this program, but also to really effectively leverage utility program incentives as well. So a little background, this program, it sort of capitalizes on a state and local policy endeavor to identify naturally occurring affordable housing and sort of preserve this affordable housing. And so it offers a tax incentive for properties that enroll in this and commit to long-term affordability. So that's kind of this blue bar. That's the enrollment in this tax incentive. And then in 2018, the city of Minneapolis had identified some additional funds that the city was gathering to create a green cost share. And part of that money then was set aside for these 4D enrolled properties to access incentives for energy efficiency as well as solar incentives. So it was a pilot program in 2018 and then became a full program in 2019. So again, just the notion of this was an attempt to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing, both with that policy initiative as well as the incentives for energy efficiency and solar. Naturally occurring affordable housing historically has not received subsidies for construction and has a lot of deferred maintenance because of that. But rents tend to be below 60% area median income, which is oftentimes thresholds for accessing other resources. And so this is a way for Minneapolis to identify these properties and get them some resources. Here's just a small example of one of the NOAA properties in Minneapolis. And here's a few other snapshots of what this segment looks like. It's got a lot of different shapes and sizes and vintages. And so I would say to characterize this housing stock, it tends to be smaller it's all rental, and I would say in the 1 to 20 unit range typically, and oftentimes towards that even smaller. Minneapolis has a lot of older duplexes, so that's a big part of this program segment. So just a little bit about the commitments and the incentives for this program. So as far as getting enrolled in the tax incentive, a property owner has to commit to affordability for 10 years. At least 20% of the units at a given property has to remain affordable and house residents that make less than 60% area median income. There are rent restrictions and increases built in, but those are restricted. I already talked about the 40% property tax incentive on all 10 years for the eligible units. There's also a couple other incentives sort of as sign up happens. In Minnesota, we have a low income rental classification list that fee and registration gets all completed as part of this application, which is key to kind of the gist of this presentation, which a lot of utility programs use that published list to identify income qualified properties. So it's a really good synergy there. And then, like I said, there's some set asides for the 4D enrolled properties to access additional green cost share funding, which is primarily what I'm talking about today. So that amount has been around $350,000 annually. That has been a little bit lower and a little bit higher depending on the year and what other green cost share activities are happening. The idea is that it leverages utility incentives that already exist. And in our region, we have kind of single family programs that are 1 to 4 unit. And then we have 5+ units that are characterized as multifamily programs. And so this housing stock crosses those. And so there's multiple utility programs that were already filed to sort of access the incentive leverage. The idea is that Minneapolis plus the utility funds, whatever they may be on a given property, would cover 90% of the total project costs. So the message is really straightforward for a property owner. You only pay 10% of the project cost. And there is a cap up to $50,000 per building, which I don't think we've even achieved that or had to enforce that cap yet, because a lot of these projects are smaller buildings. So it's a pretty generous cap. And it does include energy efficiency measures. I'll go into some of the details in a second, but also includes health and safety and some electrification where appropriate to meet some of the city's carbon goals. And then our role, again, is to navigate customers through and then access these additional utility resources. So here's a quick flow chart of how this project works. They get 4D enrollment status. We reach out to them or they reach out to us. Then we get them connected with a free utility audit program to identify measures. That work scope is then sort of refined based on the recommendations of the audit, as well as other priorities the customer has and potentially some priorities the city has. We put together some cost estimates, identify what those utility resources are going to be, submit that application, and then kind of the normal suite of things to just get projects finalized and completed. Here are some eligible projects. This is probably very recognizable to most of you. Pretty cost-effective measures. But like I said, it includes air source heat pump fuel switching conversions, which up to this point has not been able to be covered by our utility programs. Hopefully that will change to some degree in the future, but those have been mostly covered by the city. And then some health and safety projects that are kind of common in this sector and in these projects. Here are some year-to-date results. I don't have 2021 on here yet because it's still in process, but I do have some demographic information on 2021 in coming slides. But here you can see on the total project cost, that is across all buildings. So it has increased from $106,000 in 2018 to about $607,000. That includes the property owner's share. So the next line, you can see the Minneapolis funding award and then the utility incentives that were matched. And then the bill savings that are estimated from all of that work. I remember that 2018 was a pilot year. And so in the subsequent years, we've been hovering between 20 and 30 projects per year. I think we're about 30 this year. Again, to note that a lot of these buildings are smaller in size in terms of multifamily rental. In 2018, the pilot was only open to 10 units or more, so that's why they're all in the 5 to 25 unit bucket. But primarily, we're dealing with duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and then kind of a smattering of somewhere between 5 and 20 units in that last bucket. What that sort of does is, because the cost per unit is higher on smaller buildings, it does end up increasing the cost per unit, and that's for various reasons. A lot of the duplexes and triplexes, quadplexes are older than a lot of the bigger buildings, so they need more shell work, and there's more envelope to unit ratio as well. So I just wanted to note that the costs are not quite linear on a unit basis. And then just a couple snapshots of 3 projects that we have done. This is our very typical duplex. We're doing shell measures, attic walls, making sure that there's ventilation involved in those because we're tightening those up. And then water heater replacements, furnace replacements. So it's pretty comprehensive whole home program. Price tag can get quite high because you're doing all of these projects at once. Around $25,000 for this. That's maybe a little high for duplexes. It's typically somewhere around $15,000. But $980 per year is our estimated cost savings. And in these building types, those utility bills are almost always paid by the renters. And so a lot of that benefit is going directly to the low-income renters. Fourplex, similar items in this project. I will note on this one, they had individual electric water heaters. And so we worked with contractors to replace those with heat pump water heaters. Those are fairly early in the market here. And so the cost went up kind of substantially, adding that project, but it was aligned with the city's goals to get more heat pumps installed in our market. And so the city was willing to pay for some of the extra cost in that. And again, about $1,000 per year in estimated savings for the building. And then this is a typical kind of 14 unit, a little bit newer vintage. And this now you're going to more central systems, boiler and water heater were both central, some in-unit direct install, common space lighting controls. And then the cost is actually a little bit lower on this one than the last one, even though it's a much larger building. And then again, around that $1,000 per year in estimated savings. So on a per unit basis, they're saving less, but whole building, pretty good savings. So the real meat of this that I want to make sure I cover is just kind of lessons learned and feedback. Because this program was developed sort of alongside utility programs that already existed, there has been a big need for the services that CE provides to navigate these programs and make sure that we're helping property owners access all these funds to leverage the city's dollars. And so if the property owners had said that they appreciate all of that help, some properties had to apply for 4 different organizations to get work accomplished and get the leverage that we wanted to get for them. Upfront cost has been sometimes a barrier. All of these incentives are post-work rebates. And so the customer is ultimately only responsible for 10% of the project cost, but initially they're responsible for 100% of that project cost. So depending on the size of the property and kind of the access to upfront capital, that can sometimes be a barrier. We have a couple workarounds at this point, but really looking to streamline that and get more options for property owners. And then just the project management support in finding contractors, making sure that they understand what's on these bids, actually even scheduling the work and literally filling out paperwork for property owners helped achieve these projects. These property owners are very busy, and a lot of times these are side jobs for them. And so having this handholding was really valuable to them. One thing that we're trying to get a better handle on, and like I said, these programs were developed side by side and not in conjunction. And so what we really want to do is increase that utility leverage so that the city's dollars can go further. It's actually gone in the opposite direction for various reasons in the last couple of years. The city is evaluating a lower percentage covered by the city and utility money and a higher property owner, up to about 30%, and then hopefully getting the utility incentive to be closer to that 30% like it was in that first pilot year. So I think that there are some ways that the city and the utilities can work together to plan more effectively so that it's really accomplishing both goals. So in terms of what I think we have learned from this program, there typically tends to be more health and safety and code-related barriers than what we normally see in owner-occupied buildings. There's just been more deferred maintenance, not a lot of subsidy available to these properties, and so those things come up a little bit more. I definitely think that large incentives, these 70% or more, has really driven property owners to participate more than I've seen in any other rental property program I've been involved with. And so I think that that really big incentive is important, especially when you're tackling the split incentive that occurs in a lot of these properties. Like I said, the navigation services was really helpful. I think that there's, depending on the program, some incentives are calculated kind of individually, some are more predictable, but that can be kind of complicated and not very understandable for a lot of property owners. I do think that more effectively braiding these funds together so that it's not a lot of handoff to different programs would be helpful if that is something that people could plan for. There is some incongruency in income qualification for some of these properties because only 20% of the units need to qualify for the 4D program. And I believe, somewhere between 50 and 66% of the units need to qualify for the low income utility funding. So there is some good transparency about that with that published list, but they don't always align. So I think there's going to be some work done on trying to streamline that as well. And then utilizing more upfront rebates or direct payments to the contractor so that the property owner does not have to come up with 100% of the project costs. So we can, the city and CE are working on some potential plans to do that with their funds, and we'll see where that goes. It's kind of complicated. And then technical assistance on this bid comparison. We have had kind of a full, really put together work scope identified, and then in between when we were talking to the property owner and they got final bids from contractors talked them out of the most efficient equipment, and then they submitted for the rebate and weren't eligible. So having that final bid review was really important to make sure that these projects were getting done at the most efficient level. And then I do think that one thing that we've been working on more and more is to work with sort of a suite of contractors that understand what we're trying to do, and we can get more transparency in their pricing because some of these early market initiatives like air source heat pumps and sort of custom projects on the electrical can sometimes raise the budget a lot. And so in order to contain costs and to make the program, extend to more buildings, partnering with contractors and really identifying some common goals is going to be helpful as well. So I went through that super fast. Looking forward to everybody's questions, and I'm going to stop sharing now and pass it back to Ian.
Perfect. What a great program. So many great things to incent those building owners that otherwise would be very difficult for them to do those projects. The fact that you're navigating that landscape for them with all of the challenges that can come along with that, it can be a very confusing process. And the size of incentive is incredible. It's really, really fascinating program. I'm hoping we get some great questions from the audience on that. With that, I think we can open things up to questions. And I know we have had some that have shown up in the chat, and we have some other ones as well. So with everybody back on the line, maybe we can kind of jump right into that. Holly, there was one that came through to you early that was asking, it says to confirm, are the home improvement expert checklists intended for contractors or for residents to update their own attics?
Yes, both. All of the above. So the thought is that the resource can be used by utility programs, by contractors. We'd love it if Home Depot and Lowe's put them right in their stores, that residents could access them, take them home with them. For the most part, folks are hiring others to do this work. So it's a good way for utility programs to QA, QC the work that's being done on their behalf, and also for residents to be able to show a contractor who might come in to do this work and say, this is what I'd like you to do in my house. This is what DOE says would be good to do in the house. So all of the above.
Great, great. George, where is Sense taking this the initiative next?
Well, we're trying to do two things. First of all, we're running a pilot in Phoenix where we partnered with a local AC service provider, and Sense is funding the home audits for about 100 homes where we have detected inefficiencies. We want to close the loop and confirm that what we found is true and actionable. The second thing we're doing is what I alluded at the end of my presentation, kind of like to replace your AC system it's a big investment. Okay, so it's going to be hard to persuade an individual that now is the right time. But at the same time, when your AC breaks, it becomes an emergency repair. So you don't choose what you buy whatever is on the truck, right, and whatever you can get the next day. Because we have this continuous monitoring, we started monitoring the compressor for signs of fault in the capacitor, for refrigerant leaks, and we hope we're going to build a monitor component in the app that will give our customers ability to know if their AC is getting there. So then in conjunction with knowledge about how much more efficient they can get, they have the opportunity to turn this from an emergency repair to a considered purchase. It's still a big hurdle to overcome, but we need to find synergies between different signals that point that an AC replacement to a more efficient system is the right signal. And again, to get to our carbon goals that we have set as a country, we're not going to get there tomorrow. We need to work at it for many years. And over the next years, like 10 years, 15 years, many houses will replace their AC system. We need to help them to replace it with an efficient system rather with the first thing that they can buy, so that they kind of like don't sweat the next day.
Yeah. So are your pilot programs, are they done as like a randomized control trial, or how do you handle your programs from pilots to get sort of the behavioral results?
Right. So I mean, 100-home pilot is still small to call it a randomized control trial. I think this is most an education as to what technology will do. The challenge for our technology is when we get rolled out as part of the meters in New York, when we're going to have 1 million customers. And yes, we have a number of initiatives that are going to be organized as RCTs. So both in energy efficiency and in demand response or everything else that we will be involved.
Great. Thanks for that, George. Rebecca, I think this may be for you. How have you dealt programmatically in tenant situations with ASHP if the tenant previously did not pay directly for heat, but is directly electric metered, addressing a cost shift from landlord to tenant?
Such a good question, and it's a complicated problem when we're talking about affordable rental properties and electrifying. And I have this sort of, underlying reminder to people about the nuance of that, because exactly what you're, I assume, insinuating, like we do not want to start shift using air source heat pumps as an efficiency measure to start shifting costs onto low-income renters. So we have treaded probably a little more cautiously than clean energy advocates have wanted, or just electrification advocates have wanted because of this issue. What we have typically done is looked for those opportunities where they already have electric resistance. So that's not necessarily fuel switching. And we're utilizing that cost savings. They're already paying directly for those. And then in the instances where a property owner wants to put in air source heat pumps, there's kind of this question of, okay, now you're going to be shifting this cost onto the property, the renter. Would you have been doing that anyway? Were you planning to electrify anyway with a less efficient one? Can we identify a product that is a dual fuel so that you are switching over at certain temperatures so the impacts are low, but the energy efficiency is high? Do they already have AC and we can kind of integrate at that? So it's a complicated question, and I think it's a really important one to think about when we are looking at fuel switching from gas, particularly to air source heat pumps in affordable rental housing. So I don't have a great answer other than case by case and make sure that we are not negatively impacting these renters.
Great, thanks for that, Rebecca. Holly, this one's for you. What else is the Department of Energy doing to promote residential energy efficiency upgrades?
Oh boy. A lot. I'll start with our most actionable program for residents, which is our Home Performance with Energy Star program. And that is directed right at residents. It's a vetted program that allows folks to find contractors that do this level of QA, QC, and that are approved and working with their local utilities to provide high quality home upgrades. We also have methods for residents to be able to determine their level of energy efficiency. So we heard earlier about, conversations with residents where they may be paying $50, they may be paying $75, they may be paying $100. They're not quite sure what that means in terms of the energy efficiency of their home. So we have a home energy score, which is available for residents to get a very good sense on a 1 to 10 scale of what their energy performance is, and some specific recommendations for upgrades for those homes. So you can check that out at Home Energy Score on the DOE website. And that's an energy audit. So a person comes to your home and they run through a multi-point energy audit of your home and then run it through our Energy Score tool. So you come out of that with recommendations for upgrades. We are also partnering with Energy Star on some through Home Performance and other programs for folks to be able to access home upgrades more easily. So, and then we're doing a lot of work on the workforce front, Ian. I think one of the biggest challenges we see to getting home upgrades done in the United States is simply having enough people to do them and who are trained to be able to install some of the technologies that you were hearing about from Rebecca, the heat pumps and heat pump water heaters and so forth, that we really need to be installing to get to the performance levels we need.
Yeah, it's the same here in Canada where I live, where whether it's the trades that you can access or even supply chains have been a challenge as well. So something that I think will continue to be a challenge for the coming months. Rebecca, one for you. In your opinion, what are the main elements that make this program so successful?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a little bit in the presentation, but if I were to pick 3 things to do that this program either does or aspires to do, it is really deep incentives, because we're not going to tackle the split incentive problem with rental properties if we don't make it really enticing for property owners. That cannot be part of the decision-making process. So really deep incentives. I think probably 70% plus is kind of the good starting point. In addition to that, I think there needs to be either a streamlined point of contact where, if there's leverage that is just not even on the radar of the customer, that the background does it. Or if the customer has to be responsible for that, these like deep navigation services. And then good technical assistance, contractor, recruitment, and understanding of what the program is. I'm sorry, I said 3, but I'm going to say one more, which is the thing that we're still trying to tackle, but to get rid of the upfront cost and really just have the customer pay what they're ultimately going to pay.
Yeah, I had another question that was specific to that, about kind of if there was some plans to try and figure out a way to get rid of that, because
Yeah.
it certainly could be a barrier to a lot of people participating in the program.
Yeah, our goal is to try and figure out a way to utilize this, at least the city money. A good practice would be for an entity like us to be able to utilize the city money and the utility money, pay the contractor directly, and then the contractor just has to charge the property owner, or we could charge the property owner, and just sort of consolidate that directly, so that the contractor isn't waiting and the property owner isn't fronting the bill. So that's a lot to manage, and so I'm not sure we're going to be able to get it to work, but maybe on some level we'll be able to do that.
It's such an impressive program already. If you can get that piece sorted out, I think it'll really take it to the next level. I think we got time for one more question. George, we'll go to you with this one. And this was before we'll switch over to that Zoom call. George, what do you think it will take to get the 20% of the most inefficient AC units to become efficient?
A lot, for sure. It will take awareness in terms of the customer. It will take incentives from government. It will take utility programs to coordinate, and it will take a credible message to consumers. Okay, everybody has different motivators to act, and in order to achieve the big goals we have as a country, to achieve the carbon emissions, we need to execute on all of them so that we can get everyone to get more efficient.
Perfect. Thank you for that, George. And I think that why don't we go ahead and we can wrap this session up. I want to say thank you to our speakers for their presentations and to the attendees for participating in today's webcast. Again, if you'd like to continue exploring the topics presented today, please follow us to the Zoom chat room, which the link is posted again in the chat. And we'll see you there in a minute or two.